Then I'll divorce you. Huh? Wait a moment. How can you say that all of a sudden? You see, it's this, this. I've never seen my husband leave a son in such a panic before. But instead of Leo's son, it was my mother-in-law, Sophia, who spoke up. Oh, leave a son, honey. Stop being so upset now. How pitiful. I always tell you this every single time. A wife must always listen to her husband. So it's okay. She's saying that she's divorcing you. It's absolutely outrageous for a wife to disobey her own husband. If she doesn't like it, she can just leave. No, well, yes, but you say I could just leave if I didn't like it. We're going to get a divorce, so there won't be any choice for me but to leave, My goodness, you never stop talking. I've really never liked you since the beginning, when we first met. Oh, really? What a coincidence. I also hated you from the very beginning, too. My name is David, and I work in an office. My husband, Leo's son, and I decided to get married after 6 months of dating, and we've been married for over 2 years now. I loved his personality, where he'd willingly make decisions about things. I am the second eldest out of the 3 sisters, and even though my eldest sister is usually quiet and reserved, she has a strong sense of keeping things under control. As for my youngest sister, even though she was the youngest, she had great leadership skills. So I was sandwiched in between my sisters like this. Whenever we were invited to family events or when my father had invited guests over at our house, I would just follow my sisters around. I can't fully say that it was all because of the environment I grew up in, but I'm not really good at making decisions. The bigger the issue, the more I think over and over again, and in the end, I always have trouble coming up with a detailed plan and decision. When I was living at home, I was able to live comfortably as long as I kept up with my 2 sisters. I think that's why I saw my husband as a dependable guy who was really good at making decisions. But one thing I have that no one else has is that I'm much more particular and stubborn about some things than most people. And I'm proud of this part of me. Probably because we 3 sisters were close in age, when we were kids, our father would get angry at all 3 of us for things as a joint responsibility. The eldest and the youngest sister would immediately apologize to father, saying, "I'm sorry, but I would never apologize unless I completely agreed with him." Even after an hour or 2 had passed since I got grounded or punished, I was too stubborn and never apologized to him. My eldest sister got tired of waiting and said to me, "Just say sorry here, and it will solve everything." And since she said that in front of father, he would say, "Why are you talking like that?" And he kept getting angrier and angrier. My stubbornness caused a lot of trouble for both my eldest and youngest sisters. Now that we're adults, it's one of our family's funny stories. But to put it simply, I'm a person who leaves judgment to others but stubbornly refuses to agree with what I don't agree with. Being like that, my husband still fell in love with me and asked me to marry him. He is a very special person to me. Since I married my husband, my life has been peaceful. My husband, who knows my quirks very well, never tries to interfere or argue with what I'm particular about. So I cherish the life I had with Leo's son very much. Then, out of the blue, my husband suggested that we should buy a home. Hey, it's been 2 years since we got married, so why don't we start thinking about buying our own home? Oh, that sounds great. I know it's a long way off, but we want our kids to grow up in a place where they can have fun. Besides, David, aren't you dealing with quite a few issues in our current rental situation? Oh yeah, sort of. We've been living in a rented apartment since we got married, and I've had some concerns about the noise. Whenever I slept in my bedroom, I'd wake up at 5 a.m. due to the TV noise from the neighbors below. On weekends, the neighbors next door would play guitars and sing loudly. Our apartment was a corner unit on the top floor of a 6-story building, and from the walkway, on clear days, we could enjoy a beautiful view of the mountains. Some neighbors even came to our side just to admire it. However, there was this one neighbor who would stand in front of our door, holding a phone, and exclaim, "This is so beautiful," and linger there for some time. While my husband could hear the guitar noise from next door, he didn't seem to notice the noise from the neighbors below. So I know my ears are sensitive, but waking up at 5 a.m. every morning was becoming quite stressful. Plus, I was always concerned about the noise I was making myself. I would wear fuzzy slippers to minimize the noise and be considerate to the people living below us. However, my husband didn't seem to share the same concern and would walk around with his bare feet, causing footsteps that to me were stressful. You might say it's just normal noise, but to me, even that was stressful. I always wanted to avoid inconveniencing others with my actions. That's why I was thrilled when my husband proposed buying our own home. I was genuinely happy that he took my personality and our future children into account. My husband was determined to purchase a custom-built home and even wanted to be part of the process, from finding the right land. I agreed with his idea, and from that point on, We spent our holidays searching for the perfect plot of land. It took us 3 months, but we finally found one. When the time came to sign the contract, I was thinking of paying $20,000 as a deposit for the land and $30,000 for the house. Is that acceptable? Yeah, that's fine. But how should we split the rest of the expenses? David, you don't have to worry about that. I'll cover it from my savings. Oh, really? Okay, I see. In that case, I'll handle the loan, and you can take care of our living expenses. Okay, then let's do that. We quickly agreed on who would handle which aspect. Then the search for a home builder began. As I didn't have strong preferences when it came to home builders, I went along with my husband's choice. However, once we signed the contract with the home builder and started discussing the floor plan, my parents-in-law, Sophia and Leo, began to express their interest. Wait a minute, you've already started discussing the floor plan, haven't you? Let me take a look. Sure, here it is. That day, as soon as Sophia and Leo visited us, they began to question our floor plan. Sophia commented, "Oh, this kitchen won't work. It'll be challenging to use." "Oh, really? You think so?" I asked. "Yes, what's the separate kitchen table called again? Island kitchen, is it?" she asked. "Do you mean an island kitchen?" I replied. "Well, I'm not too concerned about the name, but this setup won't do. From this angle, everyone can see the entire kitchen. You should make it into an L shape." We actually prefer the island kitchen. Leo's son and I chimed in. When I expressed this, Sophia gave me a disapproving look, and Leo's son tried to ease the tension by stepping in. Now, it's still in the draft stage at the moment. Why don't we discuss it further and make decisions at a later time? My husband's statement seemed to miss the point entirely. I couldn't help but wish he had simply said, "It's David and my house. Mom, it's none of your business." However, Sophia continued to offer her opinions, suggesting that the living room should be more spacious and that the house should be made barrier-free, as if she were the one planning to live there herself. Even Leo chimed in, suggesting we build a porch at the entrance. I didn't think it would come to this, but I felt the need to clarify things with Leo's son. "Hey, the new house we're building is just for you and me to live in, right?" I asked Leo's son after both Sophia and Leo had left. "Yes, that's correct. Only our kids, you and I will live there." "Why do you ask?" "What do you mean, why?" "Well, I'm not going to live with your parents. You understand that, right?" "You mean you won't live with them at all?" Leo's son seemed a bit surprised. "Yeah, well, I don't think I need to spell it out that clearly. If I don't make these things clear now, we might end up fighting about it later. Besides, we discussed this when we were looking for our land. I made it clear that I wouldn't live with my parents or yours, and you agreed, right?" "Well, yes, but why don't you want to live with them at all?" "I'm pretty sure they won't come to live with us. They've already mentioned they're looking for a nursing home and even made plans for where they'll be buried once they're gone. Doesn't that seem a bit distant?" "Distant? What do you mean?" "Well, I mean, it sounds like you won't take care of your parents at all, right?" "No, I will take care of them." "Huh? I don't quite understand. So you will take care of them if they're in trouble?" "Of course, I'll help them if my parents are in need. That's only natural, right? I can't stand parents who take it for granted that their kids should take care of them. My parents have always tried not to be a burden to us, you know." "Does that mean you think my parents are being a burden to us?" "To put it bluntly, yes, I get that feeling sometimes." "Why do they meddle so much in our house? We're independent, remember? If it was just advice, I'd welcome it. But today, it felt as if they were dictating what we should do because they expected to live with us in our new house." "That's not true. Did I misunderstand?" "If I did, then I apologize. So just to confirm, your parents won't be living with us once the new house is complete, right?" "Of course, they won't be living with us." "I see. Good. I'm glad to hear that. I must have been mistaken. I'm sorry." After this conversation with my husband, I thought I had a clear understanding that his parents wouldn't be living with us. However, despite our discussion, his parents continued to interfere. I couldn't help but feel that they were trying to impose living together with us. If both Sophia and Leo were kind and considerate people, there might be room for reconsideration. If my husband had informed me earlier that he wanted to live with them, we could have discussed it. However, it seemed like my husband intended to pressure me into living together with them once the house was built. Besides, I had never really liked Sophia's behavior in general. She had a penchant for gossiping and always seemed to be searching for something to talk about. She knew the routines of the neighbors in the houses across from Sophia and Leo's place and would often comment on their comings and goings. She knows when they drive in and out because she peeks through the curtains every time she hears a sound. It's frustrating to witness Sophia's behavior. While having someone like Sophia in the neighborhood might provide a sense of safety, I still found her actions bothersome. I believe in looking out for yourself and helping others in need when necessary. That should be enough. What irked me even more was Sophia's tendency to speak ill of people. Whenever she opened her mouth, she'd start with phrases like, "I don't dislike that person," or "that person is not a bad person." However, it wouldn't take long before she followed up with negative comments about them. Her habit of doing this was something I couldn't comprehend, and Leo never attempted to stop her. At times, they would even huddle together and eavesdrop on the neighbors through the curtains, engaging in arguments over what was right or wrong. Living with people like Sophia and Leo felt like a living nightmare. Unfortunately, my husband seemed to have inherited this judgmental trait from his parents. I had never seen this side of him before we got married, and looking back, I'm certain he had concealed it from me. After our marriage, my husband started to belittle others, making negative comments such as, "He's useless," or "He can't do his job." While it's not uncommon to have such feelings about colleagues in a workplace, it's essential to remember that those individuals were hired by the company for specific reasons. Constant negativity doesn't serve any purpose and only harms our mental well-being. Witnessing this side of my husband was disappointing. If he were to insist on us living with his parents now, it would be a deal breaker for me and I would consider divorce. So when his parents began commenting on the floor plan, I chose to remain silent. Gradually, both Sophia and Leo began expressing their opinions and desires directly to the designer, which was completely crossing the line. At first, my husband seemed to be watching my reactions to his parents, but seeing that I remained silent, he likely felt relieved and allowed them to have their say about the house. Consequently, the house was built exactly as Sophia and Leo had envisioned it. My husband had been preoccupied with the moving process, but we had managed to prepare everything, and the move was scheduled for tomorrow. "Well, let's head over to the new house," my husband said to me with a big smile. "We're going there tomorrow anyway, so there's no need to go now," I replied. "No way. We need to decide what goes where. Why aren't you more enthusiastic? It's a newly built house after all. I had it built just for you, David." "Yeah, right? Who would want to live in a house that doesn't reflect any of my opinions? Besides, not visiting the house even once is also a bit disheartening, because I'm not interested." "Excuse me? I'm not interested in the new house." "Hey, don't say that now, or I'm going to get angry." My husband was quite excited about the new house, but I found myself lacking motivation. Nevertheless, we set out for the new house. Well, if they'll make things easier, then fine. When we arrived at the new house, I noticed some familiar luggage that had already been moved in. I had a feeling this would happen. My husband rushed up the stairs and brought Sophia and Leo, who were waiting ahead of us. "My parents are also coming to live with us today, so please take care of them well," my husband stated. He really said that. At that moment, I felt any remaining hope I had for my husband keeping his promise crumble away. I thought Leo's son wouldn't break his word, but that hope had become faint. There was no reason to hesitate anymore. However, I decided to observe for a while, hoping my husband might change his mind. "Hey, David, why would you say something like that to spoil the moment?" my husband questioned. "The house is finished, so it's a joyous occasion, right?" I responded with exasperation, "No way." Surprised, my husband asked, "Oh, why's that?" "Because my husband, who isn't any good, didn't keep his promise." "Huh? What are you talking about?" "I'm saying your son is no good for not keeping his word. You remember our promise, don't you?" "What are you talking about?" "Oh, so you two acknowledge you're a no good husband, huh?" "I said I didn't want to live with your parents, remember? And you told me you didn't want to live with them either, right? Do you remember that?" My husband responded, "Mem, I don't know what you mean by we wouldn't be able to build the house, but you lied when you said you'd build a house for me, didn't you?" He admitted, "No, that's really, I love you, but my parents are important too, so I'm sorry." I sighed and said, "I see, I understand. David, thank you. Then, I'm getting a divorce." My husband was taken aback. "Huh, wait a minute, how could you say that all of a sudden?" "You see, it's like this. You know, I've never seen my husband, Leo's son, panic like this before. But it was my mother-in-law, Sophia, who spoke up instead of Leo's son. "Oh, Leo's son, honey, stop being so upset now. How pathetic. I always tell you this every single time. A wife must always listen to her husband. So it's okay, she's saying she's divorcing you. It's completely outrageous for a wife to disobey her own husband. If she doesn't like it, then she can just leave." I interjected, "No, well, yes, but you say that I could just leave if I didn't like it. But we're going to get a divorce, so there won't be any choice for me but to leave, you know?" Sophia continued her tirade. "My goodness, you never shut your mouth. I've really never liked you since the beginning when we first met." I retorted, "Oh really? What a coincidence. I also hated you from the very beginning too." Changing the subject, I added, just one last thing. Do you really think that leave a son alone can pay the loan on this house with just his income? Huh? Ah, I knew it. I remarked when they didn't respond. You're thinking that Leo's son can pay off the entire loan with just his income, aren't you? This house is in Leo's son's name, and the loan is under his name. He's paying off the full amount of the loan from his income. If he pays the loan with his income, then who's going to cover the living expenses? My husband looked uncomfortable as I continued. Leo's son, it seems like you're forgetting too, but it was me who was going to pay for the living expenses. Sophia and Leo, clearly shocked, were forced to confront reality. Sophia stammered, "What? Hey, Leo's son, what does she mean by that? You said you weren't going to collect a dime from us." Leo's son struggled to explain. Well, then it's no longer any of my business, so I'll be going now, if you'll excuse me." I left them behind after saying my piece, feeling confident that I had made the right decision. I had already made arrangements to move the next day, sending only my belongings to my parents' house. While I didn't want to give up on my husband until the very end, considering the reality of the situation, it seemed like the best course of action. After that, my husband and in-laws must have understood the challenges of living in the new house. They approached me afterward, but their desire to live together remained unchanged. I was unwavering in my refusal to accept their proposal. What mattered most was that they had disregarded me, prioritizing their own wishes, displaying a remarkable level of selfishness. However, my steadfastness and the decisions I had made were unshakable, no matter what anyone said. Eventually, the divorce process took 6 months, but I successfully concluded it. Subsequently, it appeared that they had relinquished their claim on the newly built property. Within 2 years of its completion, it was listed for auction. It seemed they couldn't meet the loan payments after all, which was hardly surprising since our financial plans had been based on the assumption of my residence in the house. Working in a real estate company, I regularly checked auction listings, and seeing that house up for sale brought a sense of closure to my divorce. Now, I was in the process of constructing my own home. I embraced my single status, acknowledging my particular and stubborn nature, which made me believe that marriage might not be a suitable path for me. I found contentment in the prospect of remaining single, building a life on my own terms. I wished the best for myself, acknowledging that everyone should have the freedom to live life as they see fit. I hoped that I would continue to enjoy my single life, relishing in my independence. Here's to a fulfilling journey ahead, David.